A new military agreement between Russia and India is quietly reshaping how the two countries operate together, but its implications extend far beyond routine defense cooperation. The deal allows each side to deploy up to 3,000 military personnel, along with aircraft and warships, on the other's territory at any given time. It entered into force on January 12th and establishes a formal framework for reciprocal deployments. What appears to be a technical arrangement is, in practice, a structured mechanism that could alter operational flexibility, logistics, and regional military signaling. If this framework is expanded or used more actively, it changes how both countries project military presence and coordinate operations. It enables faster deployments, simplified logistics, and greater interoperability. If it remains underutilized, it may function primarily as a symbolic reaffirmation of strategic ties. The distinction matters because it determines whether this agreement becomes a routine operational tool or a latent capability that shapes expectations without frequent activation. The agreement itself is detailed and procedural. It permits the simultaneous deployment of up to 10 military aircraft and 5 warships alongside personnel under defined conditions. It also outlines rules for logistical and technical support, including access to infrastructure and coordination mechanisms. The document contains 21 articles and is valid for 5 years, with automatic extension unless terminated. It further simplifies the use of airspace and port access, reducing administrative barriers that typically slow down joint activities. To understand why this matters, the historical context is essential. Defense cooperation between Russia and India dates back to the Cold War, when the Soviet Union became India's primary military supplier. Over decades, this relationship evolved into a broader strategic partnership, with Russia remaining a major source of military hardware for India, including aircraft, naval systems, and missile technology. Even as India diversified its defense procurement, in recent years, Russia has retained a significant role in its military ecosystem. This agreement builds on that legacy, but introduces a new operational dimension. Instead of focusing primarily on arms transfers and joint exercises, it creates a framework for physical presence and mutual support. This reflects a shift from transactional cooperation toward more integrated defense coordination. It also aligns with broader trends in military partnerships, where interoperability and rapid deployment capabilities are increasingly prioritized. Key actors behind this development include defense and political leadership in both countries, though the agreement itself is framed at the intergovernmental level rather than tied to a single figure. It reflects institutional continuity rather than a sudden policy shift. At the same time, it emerges in a geopolitical environment where both countries are balancing multiple relationships. India maintains strategic ties with Western countries while preserving its partnership with Russia, while Russia is expanding its engagement with non-Western partners. Recent developments provide additional context. The agreement was formally published through Russia's official legal information system and entered into force without extensive public debate. Its provisions indicate a high level of planning, covering not only deployments, but also operational support and legal conditions for personnel. The inclusion of airspace and port access simplification suggests a focus on reducing friction in real-world scenarios, where timing and coordination are critical. The numbers involved are significant but calibrated. A limit of 3,000 personnel indicates the capacity for substantial, though not large-scale, deployments. Similarly, the allowance for 10 aircraft and 5 warships provides meaningful operational capability without suggesting permanent basing. This balance points to flexibility rather than permanence, enabling both countries to scale their presence as needed. Two potential scenarios illustrate how this agreement could evolve. In one scenario, the framework is actively used for joint exercises, training, and limited operational deployments. This would enhance interoperability and signal a deeper level of strategic alignment. It could also improve response times in situations requiring coordination, such as humanitarian missions or maritime security operations. Over time, repeated use could normalize the presence of each country's forces on the other's territory. In a second scenario, the agreement remains largely dormant, activated only occasionally for symbolic or low-intensity activities. In this case, its primary function would be to formalize existing ties without significantly altering operational behavior. It would still serve as a signal of strategic partnership, but its practical impact would be limited. A third scenario involves selective activation in response to specific regional developments. For example, increased maritime activity or security concerns could lead to more frequent naval deployments under the agreement. This would allow both countries to respond to changing conditions without establishing permanent bases or altering their broader strategic posture. The geopolitical implications are shaped by how the agreement interacts with other relationships. India's defense policy has increasingly emphasized diversification, including partnerships with the United States, France, and other countries. At the same time, maintaining ties with Russia provides continuity and access to established systems. This agreement reinforces that balance by deepening operational cooperation without requiring exclusivity. For Russia, the agreement supports its broader strategy of maintaining strong defense ties with key partners outside traditional Western alliances. It also provides opportunities to demonstrate continued relevance in global defense cooperation. The reciprocal nature of the arrangement ensures that both sides retain equal footing, avoiding asymmetry in deployment rights. At a regional level, the agreement may influence perceptions of military alignment, particularly in areas where both countries have strategic interests. The ability to deploy forces and access infrastructure more easily could affect how other states assess potential responses to emerging situations. However, the absence of permanent basing and the defined limits on deployments suggest that the agreement is designed to enhance flexibility rather than establish a fixed presence. What emerges is a structured but measured step in defense cooperation. The agreement does not represent a dramatic shift, but it introduces mechanisms that could become more significant over time, depending on how they are used. Its impact will depend on operational decisions rather than formal provisions alone. Looking ahead, key indicators will include the frequency and scale of deployments under the agreement, the types of activities conducted, and how the framework integrates with other partnerships. Observers should also monitor whether the agreement is extended beyond its initial 5-year term and whether its provisions are expanded or modified. At its core, this development reflects a broader pattern in international defense relations. The move toward flexible, reciprocal arrangements that enable rapid coordination without long-term commitments. The Russia-India agreement fits within this trend, offering both countries a tool that can be adjusted to evolving strategic needs.